Welcome back to another video on Project VQ. On this video, I'm going to be talking about buying a Z. Just a side note, we're just going to be talking about buying the Z34, aka the 370Z only, nothing else. The Z, like any other car, is not for everyone because of its rear-wheel drive setup. But like anything else that's for sale, there's a buyer for it, and the subject of buying it will come back up. So here's my advice on getting one of these bad boys. First, know that the car itself is a super reliable sports car. The 370Z in one way or another is just the improved 350Z. Long story short, they just take the 350Z and make it shorter but wider and lower, reduce the weight, improve the rigidity, and most of the mechanical parts including the engine. Speaking of the engine, Nissan rated the VQ series to have a life expectancy of 400,000 km or loosely 250,000 miles, and the VQ 37 VHR in the 370Z is its most perfect form, and probably the last of the VQ for front engine rear-wheel drive setup. Before the VQ 37 VHR comes out in 2009 under the hood of the 370Z, other versions of the VQ series were already in the market, making headlines going back as far as 1995. In its lifetime of 23 years in use from 1995 to 2018, the VQ series in its various form landed on world's top 10 engine lists 15 times. 10 of those years were consecutive years. Hence, the engine on these things are pretty reliable under proper care. However, the 370Z itself is not without flaws. There are a couple bugs here and there that plagues the vehicle that you need to watch out for when buying your Z. From the get-go, know that the 370Z's VQ 37 VHR, like the VQ 35 in the 350Z, runs really hot. If you are a heavy footer and have a longer than normal driver commute, you should go for a 2012 or newer Z where it's got a built-in oil cooler for the engine oil. Anyone thinking about seriously tracking these things though should consider an aftermarket oil cooler for their Z. I still believe that the oil cooler for the 2012 or newer Z is still not good enough for track abuse. Under normal driving condition though, with or without an oil cooler, using the right type of oil is important and in most cases should suffice. Whether it is an auto or manual, in the long line of Z car, the 370Z probably had one of the most solid transmissions. However, the clutch design for the manual is a very new design for a Nissan, and should it fail is going to require the transmission to be uninstalled. The reason being is because Nissan doesn't use the traditional fork and bearing system that we're all used to, but opt for a hydraulic cylinder called the concentric slave cylinder. The concentric slave cylinder on the 370Z, like all slave cylinder, leaks over time, meaning if you don't bleed your clutch fluid often, you may have to pull the engine and transmission apart just to replace the concentric slave cylinder. Therefore, if you ever plan to replace your clutch, eliminating the concentric slave cylinder will help you with future clutch problems on the system. There is an aftermarket elimination kit from Z1 that will turn this new internal system back to the good old slave and fork style, where if the slave cylinder fails, you can just replace it externally. Now you may wonder, why would you ever want to replace your clutch before it goes out? But there's good reason for it. The answer is simple really. All of these clutch before 2018 feels as vague and cheap as a Scion XB's clutch. Not sure what upgrading to XZE in 2018 means for the manual Z, but you should try the ones before and after 2018 if you plan to buy one. Just know that even my 2017 Z Nismo takes some getting used to, and an aftermarket clutch will improve it greatly. The cheapest improvement on this system is to replace the clutch helper spring, but ultimately you will need better clutch. The power steering system on the Z after 2013 has been pretty solid, but from 2009 to 12 there has been records of it locking up, sometimes even preventing the car from starting up. Like the clutch fluid, I recommend checking the power steering frequently and flushing the power steering religiously as well. And if you plan to track this thing, upgrading the power steering cooler is not a bad idea. The brakes on these newer one like mine seems pretty solid so far, but a while back there has been a couple of incidents of brake juddering, especially at high speed. This is mostly due to faulty caliper. However, this ordeal only affects the Z with the 4-piston system, so you're good if you're going for the base Z. Aside from these common mechanical items listed, Note that you are getting into an iconic 330 horsepower rear-wheel drive sports car that's priced 5 to 15,000 K lower than its rival. There will be road noise, there will be tire noise, and there will be plastic vibrating because of the cost factor. Which takes us to the next point. If you're going to buy a Z with a navigation system or a Bose system, please factor in the road noise. Sometimes it's just not worth having the fancy sound system because of all the road noise. Minor irritation gimmicks on the Z is a matter of tolerance. The Z's gas meter is not always accurate, it is always more optimistic than realistic. The fourth brake lamp or the rear fog lamp doesn't work, that's why I replaced it with the JDM. The car doesn't come with drill and slot rotors and I can't wait to upgrade it. The tires aren't the cheapest. My stock Bridgestone Potenza S001 is about 326 for the front and 405 for the rear according to Tirerack. Yes, they are different size and super soft tires, but the good news is it'll probably take me a decade to wear them out. These lamps on the side of the door are just for show. They don't lit up and I plan to keep them that way because nobody notices them. This other gauge should have been the temperature gauge for another fluid type like the clutch or the brake. These air vents are blocked off and not functional. Nismo Red and Nissan Red are not the same color. Backup camera is angled and 330 horse is only at the crank. The power when it hit the wheel is only in the 280s. And lastly, launching the Z takes some getting used to. Amateurs like me will probably just hit the mid 14s only. We won't get the 13.5 like the pros. If you're still interested, here's the fun part. When buying your Z, I always recommend buying it from someone you trust or the dealer. Either way, the car is going to be abused in the used car market. But most big dealer or specialized dealer have a very thorough vetting process for the used car inventory. A lot of the time they can pull Carfax, which is a major selling point. On the owner-to-owner side, most legit owner baby their Z. Note that most of the time, the amount of mods correlates to the amount of abuse. If you truly wish to get an unmolested Z or any sports car, the only way to avoid this is to buy it brand new right off of the transporter with the wrap still on. Because we all know that the longer they sit at the dealer, the more hands is going to get to it. The bottom line is, if you buy it secondhand, it's always good to have paperwork. There are various methods in picking out the right Z for you, but here's what I've come across in my research. If you want the fastest stock Z, the base with the 7-speed auto and the early Nismo from 2009 to 2013 is the fastest ones. These have a recorded quarter-mile lap time as low as 12.9 to 13 flat, respectively, because of the weight and the gearing in the base and the power of the Nismo. The Sports and the 2015 or newer Z Nismo have a solid 13.5 quarter-mile with a few tenths of a second shave for the automatic 7-speed. When it comes to cool factor, the convertible is up there, but only if you don't mind the lower 14-second quarter-mile lap times because of all the extra weight. Fun factor in the Z's line will have to go to the Nismo exclusively because of the tight suspension. However, that level of tightness is not for everyone. Z owners are always split into two camps, the auto or the manual. The Z with the automatic will always shift faster than the Z with the manual no matter what trim you go for because of the gearing differences. Most people buy the Z with the 7-speed automatic for straight line speed. The other buy the Z with the manual for the fun and control factor. Ultimately, it comes down to real world use. Maybe the wife wants to drive and she doesn't know how to drive manual. Maybe they daily drive and it's bumper to bumper traffic. Maybe they have a long commute. Maybe they live out in the countryside, etc. When it comes down to mechanical upgrades, the Z have a lot of aftermarket and OEM support. However, it will cost you. But yeah, you do get your turbo option, you do get your supercharger option, and you do get your NA bolt-on depending on your needs. I've seen turbo, supercharger, or even bolt-on going as low as the low 12s and still be daily drivable, so it's got a lot of potential. Going beyond 11s and 10 seconds is easy, but I don't think the Z is the most cost-effective car for building that kind of speed. This thing is built for grace and it is graceful as hell on the road. I honestly think it's better looking than the GTR. So that's what I come up with before I bought the Z. Thought I might share with someone who's in the process of getting one. The car is good and reliable, but it's not perfect. It's not for everyone, but it can be something special for those that can appreciate it. At the end of the day, it depends on what you plan to do with your Z, and know that the aftermarket world's got your back. Hope this helped, and I'll see you in another video. Thank you.